Hello, everyone. This is Southern Belle Whisper. I hope you all are doing well today. It is time for my top 10. I know I told you guys in my last video that it's hard for me to make a top 10 favorite books. Being a bookworm, I've read so many wonderful books throughout my life, but today I really thought hard on it and I was like, okay, I did a top 10 favorite books for you guys, just to get it out there, because you guys may have never even read some of these books before. So, then you know me, I love to share. And this is also going to be a book haul to make this video just a little bit longer. So, here we go. And this is in no particular order. Number 1 is Piece of Cake by Cupcake Brown. I've shown you guys that book in numerous videos. It's a true story. The first time I read it, I was taking classes in college, and I checked it out at the college library, and the lime green binding was the first thing that called out to me. And then when I took it off the shelf, it was decorated with sprinkles, and it said A Piece of Cake by Cupcake Brown. I was like, okay, well, this may be good. It was great. A great book, but it was very intense. It was a memoir about her life. She went through drugs, she went through prostitution, SA, like everything under the book. But it has a happy ending, I will say that. But if you read it, just know how intense it is. And there is some vulgar language. I love Cupcake Brown. She is so funny. When she cusses, it makes me laugh because she's just so freaking funny. And it's actually funny in parts as well. Cupcake just has such a great personality. It really keeps you reading the book. So I definitely recommend it to anyone out there. Like I said, it's true. It really happened. So definitely check that one out. Number 2 is Sugar Queen by Sarah Addison Allen. I haven't read this book in a very long time, but I remember reading it 3 times. I would finish it and then I'd start reading it again. That's how much I loved it. From what I remember, it's about this girl, and her mother is very intense. And she has this closet full of snacks that she hides from her mother, and she has a crush on the postman. His name is Adam. And then suddenly this ghost of a girl shows up in her closet, and I probably am not doing a great job of describing this book, but there's a part in the book where it's snowing, and just the way Sarah described the scene was just one of the most beautiful moments in a book that I'd ever read. So if you like romance and you like a little bit of mystery, then definitely check that one out. 3 is, of course, Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. I told you guys in my Q&A what that book is about. It's about a fighter pilot. He crashes in the ocean during World War II. He crashes in the ocean, and him and 4 other of his mates are on this raft in the middle of the ocean for 40 some days. And then he is captured by the Japanese and kept as a prisoner of war for 2 years. So not only does it describe what he went through, but it also describes the after effects after he, gets out of prison, and his life after the fact. And there's just a really beautiful part where he goes to see a Billy Graham revival, and I love that part. Oh, it makes me cry every time. Number 4 is The Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Jubilee was the one that told me I would love that series, and she was right. I flew through that series, but my favorite by far is The Court of Mist and Fury. I'm a big fan of Rhysand, actually all the characters. Sarah really makes it to where there's a backstory on all the characters, so you find yourself falling in love with all the characters. But I'm a big Rhysand fan. I probably was trying to say fandom. Number 5 is Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. I read the Harry Potter series 10 years ago and fell in love, and Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite. How is it that that fly is still flying around my room? I had that fly in my video last night, and it's still in this room. I swear I've had my door open to my room all day, and it's still in here. Sorry if it disturbs y'all at all. But yes, I love Prisoner of Azkaban. I love Sirius Black and Lupin. I love the whole book. Number 6 is The Unhoneymooners by Christine Lauren. It's my favorite rom-com book. I actually need to read it again. I read it twice, but I think I could read it again. It's romantic, but it's also funny as hell, and I definitely recommend it. It's definitely a good summer read if you guys haven't read it yet. Number 7 is Remember Me by Sophie Kinsella. I was a big fan of Sophie Kinsella back in the day, but Remember Me is my favorite book by her. It's been a really long time since I've read the book, but from what I can remember, the main girl, I think she's at her birthday party, and she slips and falls and wakes up in the hospital. But when she wakes up, it's like 10 years later, and she's lost her memory. She's married to a millionaire, and it's crazy book as she regains her memory and realizes certain things. It's just such a good book. Funny, heartwarming, romantic. It's just everything. Number 8 is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I told you guys I've read that book 3 times, and I love the movie too. It's one of the only instances where I almost love the movie more than the book. But everybody knows what The Fault in Our Stars is. And I also love the book that it's based on, which is called This Star Will Not Go Out. The story about Esther Earl, I think was her name. And I had that book too. It was like her journal. She had cancer, and it was like her journal entries before she passed away. So I definitely recommend that one too. She actually got to meet John Green, and they had a pretty close friendship. Number 9 is The Four Winds by Christine Hanna. I'm a big fan of Christine Hanna. I love that she can write historical fiction like no other. The Four Winds absolutely destroyed me, but it kept me on the edge of my seat until the very end. It's set during the Dust Bowl in Texas, and it's just the way that Christine Hanna writes. You can tell that she did so much research on the books that she wrote. It's such a good book. I read that book last year, and it destroyed me. Number 10 is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingslover. I read that book as well last year. I devoured it, so I hardly remember it, but I remember how much I loved it. And I just love it. I just wanted to put it on this list because some people, they're like, oh, it's such a long book, but it will keep you guessing till the end. So definitely recommend it. So that is my top 10. So let's start with the book haul now. I got these books at a book sale the other day. This is the Book of Two Ways by Joey Picoult. I used to be a big fan. I still am a big fan of Joey Picoult. Everything changes in a single moment for Dawn Elsing. She's on a plane when the flight attendant makes an announcement. Prepare for crash landing. The shocking thing is that Dawn's final thoughts are of a man she last saw 15 years ago, Wyatt Armstrong. Back in Boston, there is her husband Brian, their beloved daughter, and her work as a death doula, in which she helps ease the transition between life and death for her clients. But somewhere in Egypt is Wyatt, who works as a archaeologist, unearthing ancient burial sites, a career Dawn once studied for but was forced to abandon. Dawn miraculously survives, and after the crash landing, the airline offers the survivors transportation to wherever they want to go. The obvious option is to fly home, but she can take another path, return to the agricultural site she left years before, reconnect with Wyatt in their unresolved history, and maybe even complete her research on the Book of Two Ways, the first known map of the afterlife. As the story unfolds, Dawn's two possible futures upspool side by side, and she must confront the questions she's never truly asked. What does a life well lived look like? When we leave this earth, what do we leave behind? Do we make choices, or do our choices make us? And who would you be if you hadn't turned out to be the person you are right now? I love the cover of this book, by the way. Very excited to read this book. This is Coal Miner's Daughter by Loretta Lynn, the runaway bestseller, 8 weeks on the New York Times bestselling list. And this is Loretta Lynn. But one day, this agent brought this little blue dress with pink flowers and dainty little pockets. Mercy, how I loved it. Dad kept saying, don't get your dress dirty. I took good care of it and put it in the laundry bag, but we would let our family hog run loose, and he snatched that dress and just chewed it to pieces. Ruined it, he did. I must have cried for days. I love Loretta Lynn. And this is a pretty old copy of this book. Coal Miner's Daughter by Loretta Lynn. This is California Girls by Susan Mallory. Vinola, a popular LA morning show host, is famously upbeat until she's blindsided on live TV by the news that her husband is sleeping with a young pop sensation who has set their affair to music. While avoiding the tabloids and pretending she's just fine, she's crumbling inside, desperate for him to come to his senses and for life to go back to normal. Seeney's breakup is no big loss. Although the world insists she pair up, she'd rather be surfing, so agreeing to be the surrogate for her best friend is a no-brainer. After all, she has an available womb and no other attachments to worry about, except when everyone else, including her big sister, thinks she's making a huge mistake. Being pregnant is a lot lonelier and more complicated than she imagined. Never the tallest, thinnest, or prettiest sister, Allie is used to being overlooked, but when her fiancé sends his disapproving brother to call off the wedding, it's a new low. And yet Daniel continues to turn up for support, making Allie wonder if maybe for once someone sees her in a way no one ever has. But side by side, these sisters will start over and rebuild their lives with all the affection, charm, and laugh-out-loud humor that is classic Susan Mallory. I can't say I've ever read one of her books, but this might be one of the next ones that I read, because I'm really into summer reads. I hope it's funny. California Girls by Susan Mallory. Another Joey Picoult book. This one is called Mercy. The police chief of a small Massachusetts town, Cameron McDonald, makes the toughest arrest of his life when his own cousin Jamie comes to him and confesses outright that he has killed his terminally ill wife out of mercy. Now a heated murder trial plunges the town into upheaval and drives a wedge into a contented marriage. Cameron, aiding the prosecution in its case against Jamie, is suddenly at odds with his devoted wife Allie, who is seduced by the idea of a man so in love with his wife that he grant all her wishes, even her wish to end her life. And when an inexplicable attraction leads to a shocking betrayal, Allie faces the hardest questions of the heart. When does love cross the line of moral obligation, and what does it mean to truly love another? That sounds very interesting. I love Joey Picoult's writing, and I can't say I've ever read this. So I got 2 books by her that I don't think I've ever read. So that is Mercy by Joey Picoult. This one is a hardback. It's the funniest thing. Me and my mom were watching Billy Graham the other day. I said I would love to read his autobiography. So I found it at the book sale. This is a very big book. It didn't come with a cover, unfortunately. So, I love Billy Graham. I actually went to North Carolina on a church trip to see where he grew up. It was really nice. Just as I am, Billy Graham. So that is Billy Graham's autobiography. This one I showed you guys last night, but I'm going to show it to you again. This is Unbroken by Laura Hillebrand. I love this book so much. I'm trying to rebuild my library, so I love the fact that I have this book in my library. It's one of my favorites. Absolutely love this book. And then the last one is called From Cradle to Grave. I love true crime books, by the way. I love Anne Rule. I love any good true crime book. One by one, Mary Beth Tenning's 9 children died of mysterious causes. The most explosive true crime story of the year. From Cradle to Grave by Joyce Eggington. Year after year, one after another, the babies of Mary Beth Tinning died, 9 of them over the past 14 years. The causes were listed variously as natural or undetermined, or sudden infant death syndrome, but somehow no one, not the police, not the coroner, doctors, social workers, or neighbors, not even Mrs. Tenning's husband, detected something evil in the strange patterns of death. She drove a school bus in New York, waited on tables at a restaurant, and even worked as a nurse's aide at a pediatric ward. But this seemingly normal working woman killed her own 9 children and avoided suspicion for more than a decade. Now, investigative reporter Joyce Eggington delivers a startling glimpse into the mind of a mother who committed the unspeakable crime, the heart of a medical establishment that suspected nothing, and the soul of a community that ignored the terrible truth. You guys, I just gotta tell you this because I have to get it out. You know how I told you guys the other day that TikTok, I watched one TikTok about the Watts case, and now my TikTok is full of them. So the other night I actually dreamed about Shanann and Chris and Bella and Celeste. Like, I was seeing through Shanann's eyes, like it was a nightmare. Let me just tell you guys that, like, that case, every time I see anything about it, it just breaks my heart all over again. And whew, that case, whew. But anyways, this is called From Cradle to Grave. Really excited about reading this one. Anyways, that was my top 10 and a book haul for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all again. I love you guys. I'll talk